everyone. Hey, Jeffrey, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, my friend. Nice to be here with you.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone, to the midweek report, which is typically over on Jeffrey's channel, but we thought we'd mix it up here and kind of.
Hello, everyone.
No, wait a
Hey,
minute, wait a
Jeffrey, how are
minute.
you doing?
There we go. Hey, did you hear that?
I did.
So did I. It's like, what in the world was that? It was me. I often say that that's what happens in time travel. So, Jeff, how you been, my friend?
Doing well. Nothing to complain about.
All right.
Sad day, but we keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep moving on.
Yeah, what's up with that? I
It's
mean,
just a crazy world filled with crazy people.
welcome everyone. Room's filling up very quickly. Boy, we'll just say hello, everyone. You know, my wife and I were talking before we came on live, and when I was in high school, I didn't get the chance to finish high school, number one. But when I went, I mean, I don't think I was ever there thinking about how many people I could shoot up. I mean, it
Right.
just never entered my mind, Jeffrey. What's it say about the youth?
Well, the one thing that always comes to my mind is that they never had any mass shootings in Tombstone, Arizona.
Well, I don't think they have mass shootings in Israel, do they?
No, they sure don't.
No, it's because everyone's carrying.
Exactly.
And they're carrying automatic rifles.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
like these idiots. I saw a video last couple days. These very brave, these very adventurous, these very macho Antifa people that dress up looking like ISIS, and they run up on a big fella wearing a USA jacket and start to pepper spray him. And so this guy literally knocks out about three of them, knocks the other two down, and they start crying, take off their masks. Why are you hitting us? He says, because you're trying to pepper spray me, you idiots. It's because the world is filled with just a bunch of dummies like that.
I don't know what's happened. I just don't. I mean, what I was thinking about when I was in high school wasn't killing anyone. It was like, well, all right, who can I ask out?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, that's what it was.
But we didn't have arguably 8 out of 10 of us and some type of a serotonin reuptake inhibitor. We didn't have
No,
8 or 10 of us with testosterone levels of an 80-year-old man. We didn't have 8 out of 10 of us as messed up as these poor kids are today.
yeah, and I can't think of a better person to talk on the subject than with you. I mean, it's what happens, what is the void here? Now, I know at that 19 years of age, things are confusing. Hey, it's just the process of what life is. But what happened? I mean, for me to see when you see this repeated over and over again, it has to be more than just a coincidence. It's asymptomatic of something.
And I think what we need to do is just look at, what are the commonalities of every one of these things? It doesn't take a social engineer to figure out what's going on, in my opinion.
Well, I bet you, and this is not making an indictment on any of this, but how much you want to bet that he was playing a lot of video games?
And he's definitely on some type of anxiety medication, or one of these serotonin reuptake inhibitors. For sure he's on those. And the question is the programming just broad enough to affect certain individuals that don't have a certain amount of mental capacity, or are there certain individuals being chosen and worked and sent out to do these heinous deeds? That's the question you have to wonder. But
Well,
again, I know people don't like this, but I'll put myself, I try to be empathetic. If I was thinking about shooting up a school, if I was thinking about pulling a fire alarm to get as many people out of the school as possible so I could shoot as many people as possible, my thinking would be dramatically altered if I knew that there was a 60, 70, 80% chance that 7, 8, 9, 10 of those people were armed themselves. I might be a lot less likely to go in and shoot up a school. I'd certainly be a lot less likely to pull a fire alarm to get as many people out as possible. And I mean, it's people just, I don't understand why the radical liberals that are so against our right to keep and bear arms can't do the simple math and realize that, man, you're not going to do this stuff if you increase the chances of your own mortality before you're able to perpetrate your act.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the thing about it is it's like I was telling Lynn, I said, this is not about gun control. This is not about having access to or not to have access to guns. This is about something of the soul. This is something devoid of the spirit, that individual was in such a dark spot, dark place, that that's all they were seeing, Jeffrey. Was to see how many people they could take out. And
Wayne, it might exactly be about gun control. If you define gun control by the ability to control hitting what you shoot at, and if we all had a lot more gun control and were armed, then a lot of these people wouldn't be able to shoot nearly as many people as they do.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, so I did a program today on targeted individuals, and lo and behold, when I started looking into the subject, holy cow, Batman! It was like there is actually an international association for targeted individuals. Now, I'm just projecting here.
Mm-hmm.
For an individual to go this way, so do you think that maybe something up here went awry? And I'm just putting this out there. Do you think that he was maybe living a video game out?
Who knows? And we'll never really know the story. And I think that's part of the way these things are constructed, because we never do know the whole story.
Well, this one's alive. They captured him alive. So this is going to be
see. We'll see.
I was thinking about this, and I'm thinking, now, wait a minute. All this generation, and I don't know what I think they call them, Generation Z, all they know are video games. This is their reality. This is their sense of their core being. And the way I heard how he went about this, he pulls the smoke alarm, the fire alarm. He knows immediately the doors are going to be emptying out, the hallways are. This is a scenario that I bet you, if someone did the research, would find it in a video game somewhere. And it just seemed to me that he was too rational, too calm. I watched it as the copter showed as he was in the back of the patrol car. Apparently he got shot in the leg or the foot. And very calm, very, not like he had just massacred 17 souls and injured another 30.
It's interesting. It's Slightly Slanted makes a good comment. If you're flying an airplane, they've got undercover armed air marshals. If you go out to a bus station or something, you've got armed police there. It's because, well, we know that we've had people try to hijack airplanes, so we know that we should have some protection there. Well, how many schools have to get shot up before we make the same easy, logical decision? If people are going to shoot up schools, we need to have some armed response at the schools. And in this case, I say less is not more, more is more.
Oh, yeah. Well, here in Colorado, I don't think it would be a good idea for any person to walk onto a school campus here. They have metal detectors, the whole bit. And this guy, apparently, this is a very large, 3,000 students. That's a very large school. Found a annex, I guess, of the high school to play the scene out at. I still think that there's something more going on than what we, like you said, we may never know. What we do know, he is alive, and we'll see what happens.
There's an interesting point in the chat room. saying that, and I know this can start a real debate, that the violence in video games can tend to desensitize people towards this.
Been saying it for decades. I don't play them. I'm of the generation with Pac-Man. You know, uh, the idea of the whole killing thing was not. It just wasn't thought of.
Right. And multiple sources are saying that he, at the very least, had great respect for ISIS.
I mean, I don't get it. I don't get the reality. And that's what I'm missing. Maybe none of us do, but it seems to be happening more and more and more. And I think the alarming thing that I see this is that the age is getting younger and younger. If they're desensitized to this point, wow.
It's really scary. It's sad.
I don't know. So other than that, how's it going?
Yeah. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how'd you enjoy the play?
Yeah, it's and this whole targeted individual thing. It's very weird. I mean, I don't know, Jeff. We are indeed the last generation.
Oh, I think there's no doubt about it.
I had someone write me, and I'll let you continue. I'm just going to read this to you because I thought it was quite poignant. This actually came from Doug, and he said, I had a feeling something happened to you when the show with Mary did not air. And he said, glad to hear you recovered. He said, I'd like to throw a thought out there to you, Rex, and Jeff D. The more I think about being the last generation of humans, the more I consider being the first generation of EMF human hybrids. We have had everything done to our generation, A to Z, you name it. We are 1G through 4G and about to be fried by 5G. Doug, I think that's very rational thought. What do you think?
Well, I mean, there's definitely a lot of things going on, chemically and energetically to us, not to mention psychologically, mentally. So we really do have to buck up. We really do have to, take charge of our own lives. And I think that one of the things that gets overlooked is the importance of physical fitness. I think if you have a healthy body, you can have a sound mind, and the two of those can combine to give you a clear spirit. And it's hard to get to that place where you're clear spiritually if you are cloudy mentally and if you're sick physically. So it really is a holistic solution. And we need to start, in my opinion, embracing that even more.
How did we reach this generation? I mean, I'm trying to think back when I was, the hippie generation. We were, don't know if I'd really listened too much of what the establishment had to say, but I think we had more soul back then. It's just me. So how do we reach them? I mean, what is it that we're not connecting them with?
I think with this generation, it may be more about volume. They need to hear it many times. So it's just about turning up the volume a little bit and pumping out a large volume of information. And I mean, the more that Rex puts out, the more you put out, the more I put out, the more Heidi and Jenny and Trisha and all of our other friends put out, I think the better chances we have of getting through to these people, because it's about volume and literal turn up the volume, and it's also about volume of getting just more information out, because they're absolutely besieged and barraged by information. I mean, these people, from the time their feet hit the floor, and even before that, they sleep with these earbuds in their ears. They're totally listening
Yeah.
to input all the time. So you've really got to just get in line and wait for your input to come through. And we've got to, I think maybe find some new innovative ways to slap them upside the head a little bit so that they will take notice and at least listen and get the good input in.
When you talk that, I keep on thinking about, I think that they have become anesthetized, Jeffrey. I really do.
They have, to an extent, no doubt about it.
And I think it's this constant, the commercials are so true today. You cannot live without Wi-Fi. and we're pumping it up. We're pumping the signal up. We're pumping the ampage up. And I had this moment today, and I know this sounds, I was cooking. I enjoy cooking. It's a great time. I now look at it like alchemy. I get to mix everything up. But anyway,
Yeah.
and the thought occurred to me that when I see what's going on with everything around us and how we're becoming more and more dependent upon machines, we're becoming more and more dependent upon this artificial frequency, that, Jeff, I think that we may have been here before.
It's also interesting this happened on Ash Wednesday, not to mention Valentine's Day, but it's also Ash Wednesday.
It just now hit me, the St. Valentine Massacre.
Yeah. Interesting.
I had completely forgotten about that.
Very interesting.
Very interesting. And I saw the thing as well with these newscasters, all with the ash on the forehead, and I went, that's a strange view. But
it is a strange view. And I mean, this is, Ash Wednesday is supposed to be it's the day of peace. It's the first day of Lent. You give up something for 6 weeks. And I'm hoping that maybe as, people, see this terrible thing happen, and as they, move into this Lenten season, if many people that are observing Lent might seriously and prayerfully consider giving up Catholicism for Lent, or giving up religion as a whole for Lent, I think that would do a great bit towards bringing peace and comfort to the whole world. So give up Catholicism for Lent. Give up religion for Lent.
Gary Baxter said, I gave up Lent for Lent.
There you go.
And I agree with you. And because religion is not the answer here. But I do believe that the answer lies spiritually. I'm convinced of it. And maybe you did a video. I saw it. We've had many guests on here that have been talking about it. Maybe that answer lies within magic.
It may. And when you think about it, when you've got, say, at least 7 out of 10 people in this country would self-identify with a religion whose God brags about being vengeful, who brags about being jealous, who brags about being wrathful, then why is it a surprise when somebody that doesn't think the world's going exactly the way that it should go for them, when somebody that's not getting exactly what they think they deserve, why wouldn't they act exactly like the God that they've been taught about? Why wouldn't they act exactly like the God that has been taught to them? It's like the old saying, do what I say, not what I do. But our actions always speak so loud that we can't hear what people are saying. So follow a bloodthirsty God, follow a killing God, follow a murdering God, and you're going to get bloodthirsty, killing, murdering disciples. And sooner or later, some of them are going to snap, and you have these horrific events. It does get back to the spirituality, and it's the price of living in a fear and guilt-based control matrix.
Yeah, and the fear and the guilt, it's a do combo. There's no doubt about that.
It really is.
I was thinking about this, that here's these students. They can now hear the gun, and they know what's going on. The reality is hitting them very quickly, and that's the moment where they're still young. Life is still stretched out there. Death is, apparently it's something they're living with more and more as a reality. But I began to think, what if we could have reached out to them and taught them? I believe that you could cast a spell. I really do. The guy who's got the gun, he's under a spell of some kind, right?
Well, you would think so, definitely.
I mean, I'm just putting it out here because I hate to say this, but praying didn't do those people any good.
No, it sure didn't.
And it's just the reality that we have to deal with here. I mean, I know that this is a serious, serious subject, but you know, the ages are going. How old was this young guy? 19?
Somebody said he was actually older, like he had maybe flunked some grades or something. I've read conflicting reports. He might have been 20 or even 21,
Okay.
and he's still in high school, which is weird.
That's weird. Yeah. Yeah. Well, see, yeah, and Terry brings up a good point. I'm reading in the chat room there, Jeff, that you see, I believe that instead of the fear. Now, listen, I know freaking bullets are flying over your head. I get it, but you know, we all face that point. I just wonder if my point I'm trying to get here is that instead of fearing underneath there, if they would have gotten together and could have looked and connected the eyes and turned that power, that energy around. I don't know, and hell, I shouldn't even be speculating because I was not there while the guy was firing away.
And people in the chat room were talking about God's the only answer. My question is, where was God? Where is God when these things are happening? I mean, if we're going to say, oh, God's the answer, where is he? Where was he? And when you got a whole school system that is geared towards teaching people and leading and guiding people into a sheep mentality, into a herd mentality, discouraging individual thought, discouraging, people standing apart, and discouraging people is what I meant to say, discouraging people from, standing out from the crowd. And you're creating a whole community of people that are ripe candidates for mind control, or ripe candidates to, maybe whisper in their ear, ripe candidates for being, part of a false flag. So we're allowing it to happen. We're watching it happen. And it's almost illogical when we are surprised when bad things happen, when we got a system that is seemingly designed to let these things happen and to facilitate the raw materials for perpetuating these type of things and perpetrating these type of things.
Well, I think the insanity, as you were talking, I was just sitting here. So God is the answer. That's what people are saying. I just say, which God?
Which God, yeah.
Well, let's get right back to the whole fundamental insanity here, folks. Let's get real serious. None of these school districts allow God in unless it's a foreign God. They'll allow a Muslim God in there. They'll allow a Hindu God. They won't allow the Christian God in. And then we get into these kind of discussions when these events happen, and everyone then says, well, where was God? Well, the fact is that you're blocking it to begin with. You can't let the kids pray. You can't let them quote Bible verses anymore. I'm not saying that every kid has to. If you don't want to participate, well, don't. But the fact is, you don't allow it to happen. And then when we see these tragedies, then everybody wants to start crying Jeffrey to God. Oh, well, God was the answer. No, God is not the answer in this case. The answer is mankind. When are we going to get off of our butts and get our proverbial cranials out of our anuses and begin to see that it's not God, it's us?
That's true. And, the God of Islam and the God of Israel is the same God as the Protestant God. We just don't like to admit
it all
that.
Goes back to Abram.
It all goes back to the Abrahamic God. It really does. And the point of the matter is, people are sitting around and, wondering and crying, and not just about this, but why doesn't God do something? Why won't God do something? Where is God? Well, the Christ said that the kingdom of God is in you. And the reason that God out there somewhere isn't doing something is because they facilitated an arena for us, the people with the spark of divinity in us, to learn how to act on that spark of divinity, develop that spark of divinity, grow that spark of divinity. And instead of asking, why won't God do anything? Why isn't God doing something? Look in the mirror and say, why aren't you doing anything? Why aren't I doing something? Because the God that's going to make changes in this world is the God in training with the spark of divinity that looks at you every time you look in the mirror We are the last generation of real humans, and we are the Elohim in training. If you want God to start doing something, then get busy, cousin, because you're the gods, we're the gods, and if you want God to start changing things, I'm ready. Let's lock and load.
Well, and I'll just get real fundamental here. Number one, when you think about this subject, number one, we should start voting out school board members who have this anti-human, anti-divinity approach. Listen, I'm not saying divinity is equal to religion. What I am saying is that when we begin to realize that it's not the religion that defines us, it's not our sexuality defines us, it's our species that defines us. And that there is something greatly wrong when we have and we vote school board members, and this is how this works, folks. Find out who they are. Find out where their head's at. Because this is where it's going to change, Jeffrey. When you can start going back when I was in school, where you could go to the arts, the literature, and you wouldn't be afraid of lawsuits, offending somebody's feelings, when in fact you could actually be enlightening the whole student body at the same time. Wow, boy, did I just get enough.
And not to mention the fact that students that are homeschooled consistently score higher on testing than those that go to public schools. And I'm not sure, but I don't think I've heard of a homeschool being shot up anytime lately.
No, well, I haven't heard that. I just think we could teach them. I'd love to go to any junior high or high school and start teaching them, or in a forum setting, about what it means to be awake, what it means to be aware, beginning to look within. It's not a religion, it's not a God, it's looking within yourself and understanding that you were created for a purpose, you have a purpose here, there's a destiny, and it's to add to the race, not to take away from it, and it comes from within.
Absolutely. And I think it gets all down to the thing that the Christ said, there's two basic things here. Number one, if you will love the divine with all your heart and then love your neighbor as yourself, everything works. But the problem is, if you believe that if you're filled with original sin, then you can't really love yourself. You can't really trust yourself. You can't really give yourself to total self-love, because you're still at best a sinner saved by grace. And let's face it, if you can't trust yourself, then when you look at your neighbor, that neighbor also has that sin in them. So that prevents you from totally embracing them and totally trusting them and totally working in harmony with them. And that keeps the whole thing messed up. That sets the stage for the divide and conquer. That sets the stage for they're not like me, I'm not like them, let me go shoot them. But if you realize what the Christ said, you've got the spark of divinity within you. And when he says, love God with all your heart, he's talking about love the divinity in you with all your heart. Ergo, you love yourself with all your heart. Doesn't mean you think you're perfect, but you love yourself in spite of the times where you don't do exactly what you want to do. You love yourself in spite of the times where you don't do exactly what you want to do. And then you start giving that same love to your neighbor. Instead of suspicion and doubt and worry and fear, you start saying, okay, they've got the same spark of divinity in them that I do, so I can love them and respect them. Even when they don't do, act, look, talk exactly like me, I can still respect them because they have the spark of divinity as well. So if we go back to the message of the Christ, it all makes sense. It works together. But that message has been intentionally flipped with this lie of original sin. And every drop of blood that falls to the ground in one of these hate shootings, these hate killings, I think goes right back to the feet of the old rugged cross. And if you don't like that, I'm sorry. It's the truth anyhow.
Well, I want to key on exactly what you said there at the beginning. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. The problem is we're seeing exactly what it is that we do, because we don't love ourselves. We hate ourselves. Therefore, we hate our neighbors. We can't help it not to.
How can you love yourself if you're a sinner, Wayne?
Well, you can never make it. When I walked away from Christianity and just said, to hell with it, I mean, in essence, this is what I said. I said, no more religion. No more. I've had it. And the fact is, It took me, Jeff, almost a year to get to that point where I wasn't guilty, where I looked at myself and saw myself as that sinner saved by grace, and that never worked out all that well as well. So I think this is fundamentally, folks, everyone that's in this chat room right now, this is what the fundamental problem is, Jeffrey, is that we haven't figured out how to love ourselves. We don't even know what love is.
Absolutely. And, there's another, perhaps a more insidious underlying psychological and spiritual issue going on here. If you're taught that you are filled with original sin, which we all been taught, deep down psychologically, you realize, okay, wait a minute. I came into this world, personally, a bouncing baby boy. You might have come in a bouncing baby girl. I didn't do anything wrong, but when I drew my first breath, I inherited this Adamic sin nature. I inherited this inheritance of sin. So really, there's a victimization right there. There's a victim mentality right there. As soon as I took my first breath, I'm guilty by something some other dude did. So is it any real surprise that we grow up in this world, too many of us thinking everything that's wrong with me is somebody else's fault. Everything I do wrong is because somebody made me do it. Everything that somebody else gets, they took away from me. And if I don't have everything I want, there's always somebody else to blame, but never, ever any responsibility for me taking control of it myself, because there's always somebody to blame right from the very beginning. Original sin sets up somebody else to blame. Original sin sets up a victim mentality. Whoops, sorry. If you realize that you got the spark of divinity within, then it sets up responsibility. I've been given the keys to the kingdom. It's not my fault. It's only my fault. I've been given the keys to the kingdom. If I don't learn how to drive, there ain't nobody to blame but me, cousin.
I love this. I really do. Because we get so wrapped around the axle in our theology, and I got to tell you, there is a freedom of where, and it's not pride. That's the thing about it. Someone challenged me over the weekend and said, well, how can you say you still love God when you're not a Christian? And I said, well, I asked the $64,000 question, well, is God as a Christian? And the person said, I'm not answering that because that's a trick question. And I said, okay, so what's your point? They said, how can you love God? I said, because what I have found out is that now God is not wrapped around this enigma of this thing that I'm not worthy enough. No matter if there was a blood sacrifice that paved the way, you enter in with the fact that you're always going to be below. And I always had a poor self-image of myself. Growing up, this is what I found, Jeffrey, in my faith and with those proclaiming the faith. Manipulation. You had to manipulate each other. Church itself is the grandest manipulation of all. When you walk in, and anyone, as you know, that's been involved in church governments, you know how the system works. And you ply the people when they walk in through the door. Now today, you ply them with donuts and coffee, Starbucks if you're really up there at the top, and the psychological chant goes in. You start with the singing, you start with the praise, and then the whole system goes in. My whole point to all this is that when I told this person, when I shed that, and I told you, there is something greater than God. I don't know what it is. The Zephyr says it's called the infinite being. Maybe. But that's where I'm in love with now.
Well, in my meetings, Wayne, and in my churches, we didn't allow any type of drinks into the sanctuary because it would have been a mess, because somebody was going to dance, somebody was going to shout, somebody was going to fall out, somebody was going to do a Jericho march, and we'd have had a mess. So we didn't have any of that Star Beezy or any of that stuff in my church. But, you followed a good precedent, Wayne, because there was a time that the Pharisees, the religious people, came to Christ and they said, hey, John's baptism, was that from God or was that from man? And then Christ within himself was saying, oh, I know what you're saying. You're trying to put me in a, no, they asked him a question. And the Christ said, I'll answer if you answer this for me. Was was the baptism of John from God or from men? And they wouldn't answer that, because if they said from God, it would be, well, then why didn't you follow it? If they said from men, the people would riot. So you're in perfect.
I had thought about that. I am.
It's a perfect. You're in perfect alignment, because the Christ, he's also the one that said to people, your daddy's the devil and you're just like him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I've kind of, understanding Sophia, understanding the feminine is so critical in getting balance back in here. And I'll just, I don't have a problem telling everyone how it was. The way I grew up, women dating was almost a conquest. I mean, it's really how it played out. And, that type of mentality, I once heard a guy say in a men's meeting at a church, he said, men love penetrating things. That's all they live for. When they're born all the way to when they're dead, that's what they live for, is to penetrate something. And I had never thought about that, but it starts from that point, and that's how I viewed the opposite sex. It wasn't there for companionship, it was there as a conquest. And now I look at this, without the balance of the feminine, we're never going to be in balance, Jeffrey. That's just my take.
And somebody in the chat room, it went by, I didn't see it, but very plainly and eloquently stated, if you teach people, every Sunday and during the week, and if you're Catholic, you can do it twice a day. If you teach people, come in here, eat some flesh, and drink some blood, is it really that big a surprise that they go out and shoot people?
There you go. That's that mind coitus. I swear.
You bring him into a church with a dead guy on a stick, or just the dead guy's stick, and then wonder why people are violent. You're worshiping in front of a guy being tortured, drinking his blood, eating his flesh, and you wonder why people are violent.
Well, that just gets the whole thing again. As I said, you look at the Old Testament stories and the genocide that took place. It's just crazy, Jeffrey. It's crazy. And, and I never did understand the whole ash thing. I get it, but I never quite understood that. It was never in my practicing of doctrine in Christianity. We didn't participate in that.
Yeah.
So what was that for?
Some ladies were saying that, they don't like just being treated as sex objects, and, just being treated as pieces of meat. And I feel your pain, ladies. I'm going to be 55 this year, and I'm tired of being treated like a sex object too. I'm tired of being treated like a piece of meat as well. So I understand. I want people to appreciate my sensitive side.
Well, it's because we're never taught right. We're just not. And it starts again, it's culturally. I go back and you read the Sumerian history. It was prominent back then. Females were given a secondary role. So what happened? Seriously, Jeff, this is a question I have just looking at this. What happened to our species, our culture, where women were denigrated to a lesser capacity, but without women, the population would not be here?
Well, if you're talking about it just here in the West, it's immediately directly traced back to the Apostle Paul. Women are not allowed to have authority over men. Women should be quiet in church. Women should only ask their husbands if they have a question. Women are meant for the sexual pleasure of men. Paul said all this. And women are so sexually out of control that if they don't have a man's authority to be under, they'd be having sex with anybody and all kinds of spirits. So it's very plain where the degradation and the depreciation of women in general, and where the suppression of the divine feminine has come from in the West. You can lay it right at the feet of the Apostle Paul.
Well, and I've never understood the book of Corinthians anyway, because the whole story, the foundation was that there was incest taking place in the church, as the story goes. And then you read Corinthians, and it sounds much like the Quran.
Interesting.
And it does. I mean, you can go. I can give you a number of passages that you could read Corinthians, particularly getting in through the first 9, 10 chapters of First Corinthians. It really reads like the Quran.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I don't
And
know
I
if you
mean,
ever.
I've asserted for years that it's the same God, the God of Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. It's the same God, so it makes sense that they'd be telling the same story.
Well, I mean, technically, every Christian woman should be wearing a headscarf.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what Paul commanded.
Yes, he did.
Are y'all starting to see something here, folks? Getting it? You take this to the next level. They are separated. They're not allowed to actually come in and pray with the men. They are held to the other side and are to be kept quiet. It's the same thing when they're called, Muslim men are called to prayer.
That's right. Crazy.
Hello?
It's crazy.
So what's Christianity again? What's Islam?
If you look at it, Christianity is just kind of Islam light, isn't it?
Actually, the way I was told, the emissary of the Pope in 607, when Jerusalem had been laid to waste and the Arabs were coming in, they had a problem. For the most part, most Arabs did not have a problem with Rome until there was a pope that came in, and I got to remember, I'll have to go back in my notes, but the long story short, it is said that Islam is, in fact, was founded and started from Rome.
Yeah, I've always wanted to try to find the smoking gun on that, because in my gut it seems like it's true, but it's just hard to nail it down.
You can't nail it down.
Proof, yeah.
But it's the perfect antithesis of the religions. They're actually the same God, same principle. Same players. I mean, the only difference here is instead of Jacob, it's Ishmael. And even that's the greatest mind coitus of all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, because it was Haggai that was, in fact, if you look at it through the birthright, right? Never was the bloodline, it was the birthright.
Right.
The first son always had the birthright of the blood right. So any way you look at it, Jacob would have been the bastard, not Ishmael. Yep. And then you get this cockamamie story when Haggai is out there in the desert with Ishmael. Who comes out and ministers to him? Gabriel.
James Beck says, Wayne, that you're the reincarnation of Ben Franklin.
Well, thank you. I'll take that as an honor. That's a compliment.
Now, he said I was the reincarnation of someone. Take a guess.
I don't know.
Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson. Well, this is a good place you can hang out.
That's been said before.
Yeah, good place. But it's true when you look at these, the similarities are so numerous. It's just a matter, the way I look at it, it's just a little different interpretation of a culture. That's all. It's the same God.
I agree.
That's the thing that gets me then. So what are we doing here? But I had not really ever started really connecting the dots as well as we had just done right there, because you begin to look at it and you begin to read the two things and you're going, well, this is not so dissimilar.
It's really not. You can see it's very much the same thing.
So I wonder how most of the women would appreciate that if they really knew that true Christendom, and that's what it is, it's not Christianity, it's Christendom, would actually invoke upon the strict compliance, right, that they'd be wearing headscarves.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the, well, even if Christianity does say bad things about women, it's so much better than Islam. Well, maybe it is so much better than Islam, but guess what? True spirituality and freedom is a lot better than both of them.
As they would say, right on. I used to say amen, and someone had the cognitive awareness to say when they looked at amen, it actually can be dated back to ramen.
I've heard that.
Yeah. And she really did an excellent job in the literary translation of the word. And so you think about this. I had this discussion with someone on my email because they heard on the radio show. Ieusus, I-E-A-U-S, is, no matter you look at it, it is in fact Zeus, son of Zeus. And I keep on saying to people, do you tell me the translators who understood Aramaic, Latin, Greek, that they didn't know what a Jewish name was? No, I mean, Jeff, that's still the thing I challenge anyone. They would have never, ever made that type of grievous error, particularly dealing with a deity.
Yeah, the similarities between Jesus and Zeus have always made me go,
Well, I still contend, my friend, that the thought that's out there, and they've done their homework very well, that it still looks like to me it's Titus. When Christians are worshiping Jesus, they're actually worshiping Titus. They don't realize it. They call him Jesus, but Jesus never existed. But the only one that was truly put into the record that John would have known, that all of these guys would have known out there in Judea coming in the dispersion, is that they would have known who Titus was. And Titus was proclaimed the Son of God.
Emily, can I ask you a question? You asked me a question. Can I ask you a question? Are you a dummy? Oh, sorry, Wayne. I forgot we're on your channel tonight.
No, what? I missed something. What happened?
Oh, we just got asked a silly question. I'm sorry, I forgot we were on your channel, Wayne. I shouldn't act like that on your channel.
No, you can be the same here. So this is what I have finally come to the conclusion, Jeff, and I don't know how in the world we got here, but here's what I have finally, as I told this individual over the weekend that I was talking to, I said, here's what it comes down to me is this. We have the Samaritan tablets. Now, unless you can show me something older, right now I'm going to use that as my baseline for my argument. The Hebrew God is not listed in there. In fact, there isn't any God listed. There's not any Hindi God. There's not any Muslim God. There's no Jewish God. It's either Inyel or Enki, and I don't know which one we're worshiping.
Yeah, people always ask me that, and I haven't put any effort into making that connection.
Well, I mean, if you just take the storyline, if Abram was in the city of Ur, in the nation of the Chaldees, which was of the capital of Sumer.
Right.
Well, he worshiped the moon goddess. That was the top goddess. That was, what is it, Hamish? I wish Rex would hear. He would have had the name immediately. That was the top goddess. That what I keep on saying, for him to walk away from that would have had to have been something on the level of Inyel or Enki themselves. I mean, Jeff, I've meditated thousands of hours on this. It just wouldn't make sense that he would have come to this foreign god and not expected to have signs, not expected to see something greater than that which he was already worshiping.
That makes perfect sense. Somebody says that the Olympics have been put on alert.
For what?
I would guess, like, terrorism, type of things. Red alert at the Olympics,
Well, I hate to hear that. By the way,
which makes sense, I guess.
well, listen, I think we all kind of had in the back of our head something. But what about Shaun White? Woof, that dude, I mean, did you see? I mean, 31 years old doing what he was doing. That just tells you youth wasted on the young. Hey,
Yeah,
I want to give Heidi a big shout out, Jeffrey. And I want to say this. When she does a reading, she does a reading.
no doubt
And
about it.
Jeffrey, something happened this afternoon in my personal life with my wife that has absolutely turned so many things 180 degrees. And Heidi was spot on about the timing. And because I can tell you this time last week, it didn't look like this. It looked very much different. So
The lady knows what she's doing.
She does. So how is the chat room going?
Looking good.
Did they accuse us of being with the Illuminati?
Pretty much. The Zoroastrians were probably a little bit before the Jews, kind of right around the same time. But Zoroastrianism was probably first.
Yeah, and I go and read the Chaldean record. You can easily go on there. It's been deciphered, well written, easily understood. When you begin to realize that the first 6 chapters it's the first 8 chapters of Genesis actually was taken from the Chaldean text, almost literally word for word. It was never written by Moses, was never written by any one of the authors. They actually used that as the foundation of the invention of the Hebraic religion.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, when I read the Chaldean text, quite fascinating. I mean, I learned a lot. That, in fact, Jeffrey, I can tell you, it was really when I studied the Chaldean text that it really made sense, Genesis 1:26 and Genesis 2:7. I was able to connect how that bridge had been basically, the gap was there. And when I read the Chaldean text, well, it really makes sense. We now know that there was actually 2 creations. This planet was hit once before it was hit with the water disaster.
Absolutely.
How is the chat room going in there? Yeah, is it?
Oh, somebody's complaining that
Shaun
they
White.
said if you don't have any money, Heidi's not going to give you a reading. First of all, she does 3 or 4 shows a week where she does give out
she does
free readings. I like to suggest this to you. Go next time you need brakes on your car, go into your mechanic shop, and guess what? No money, no brakes. Next time you want to buy some food, go to the grocery store. Guess what? No money, no food. I think you see the trend there.
And listen, we've had them on number. I know they're on your channel and Rex, and Heidi does do a lot. It's like Trisha G, same way. Jenny Moonstone. I mean, these are good people. Good
Absolutely.
People. And I appreciate them. They're in the community, and we really appreciate them. I don't know what's going on with the. Let's see. I just watched a video about the Sumerian Book of Kings. What did you find out? I'm just looking in here. I just come in.
Good stuff.
It really is. Great conversation. Great. I love these people, Jeff. They are just the best. They're kind. They're smart. They're just. I really appreciate them. Mother Dragon says, "Yep."
$42 oil change.
Woo!
Is that what an oil change is going for these days? Like $40?
I think it is. Yeah. It's not cheap, man. And I can remember pumping gas for 17 cents a gallon.
Delaney Jackson says, Trisha saved my marriage.
Way to go. I'll tell you, all of us, these are good people. I tell you, I just have such respect and such admiration for them. I really do.
Excellent.
And we got a great family. And how about the picture I'm going to show that, Jeff. So give me 1 second. The one that who is the artist on this? Who was this?
I think his name is Lee.
Is it Lee? Is it okay?
I think.
Let me get this. Here we go, folks. This is da 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 da. I told him we got to get everyone on this. I mean,
that's good stuff.
Is this? I mean, this is. I really like this. So, all right, let's see. You're the Hulk. Get that. I'm Han Solo. I appreciate that. That's a good look for me. I can dig that. Heidi is
got some bling going on.
Yeah. Got that look. Who's Heidi?
I don't know what that is.
Is she the in the Matrix?
Could be. Kind of looks like Trinity a little bit, huh?
Yeah, Trinity. Thank you. I think that's who it is. Oh, this is just good stuff. Trisha, that had to be from when someone found out about her in the military.
Well, she's a fox, right? That's a little fox.
Yeah. It's I just love
movie.
Yeah. This is just great. I'll tell you what. We got to get them on. I thought everyone would appreciate that. We really ought to make that into a mug.
Real good stuff.
Or T-shirts. What do you think?
Both.
Okay. All right. That sounds good to me. Well, my friend, this has just been a fun hour. We have really covered some unusual subjects. What, are you there?
Hit the wrong button. Yeah, we always do. So it's been another good night.
It has been. And the room is filled up very quickly. Listen, we'll be back and forth. Sunday, we'll be over on Jeff's side. What you got coming up, Jeff, for your week?
I'm trying to put a few things together. I just got, I've been inundated with, rods and mistech. So I've been having to do a lot of regular work. So we're doing the best we can to keep everything rocking and rolling. And I like it when it's just south of frenetic. And that's about the way it is right now.
Excellent. A lot of people ordering the wristbands and
absolutely
excellent. Well, give them your channel, and also your website.
And those darn things. The thing about it is, as soon as somebody gets them, they want 2 more. So it's a lot of work. The easiest way is just go over to my YouTube channel, which is Jeff Daugherty Show, Jeffrey Daugherty, Christian Whistleblower. You can find it under anything there. My website's jeffreydaugherty.com. And we're about 1 week from tonight, we'll be on shortwave worldwide. So we didn't have enough to do, but we're going to start doing some more.
Excellent. And I know you got some road trips planning, folks.
Yep, that'll be here this week. Next week, we're going to head over to NASA and Crystal Mine, Spiritualist Encampment, a lot of good stuff.
Excellent. Make sure to subscribe over there if you're not. Support Jeffrey. We do 2 shows a week, and as you can see, we just kind of cover the full gamut.
We do.
It's just that good it is. Tomorrow night for myself over on the Artist First Network, 10 o'clock East Coast time. I do the Steiger perspective. We'll be having Dr. Claudia Albers on. We're going to be talking about the dimming sun. We're going to bring that live to YouTube Friday night. Jeffrey, it's going to be it's an interesting subject now that NASA has actually come out and confirmed what we've all been suspecting. The sun is definitely getting quieter and quieter. So that's going to be a good subject. I did reschedule with Mary Rodwell. We will be doing it a week from Sunday. And Jeffrey, she was the one who said, Wayne, says, boy, it sounded like they targeted you. And oddly enough, people who get close to her, start interviewing, they seem to have that problem. So,
wow.
There you go.
Well, the best to you on that. It's been a pleasure to be with you, Wayne.
Jeffrey, do it. I enjoy this. So, folks, be kind to one another. Thank you all, everyone. Brenda Fisher, good to see you. Thank you all, the moderators. Hey, folks, we'll see you back here real soon. Be kind to one another, and we'll talk real soon. All right. Bye-bye.